Right now, we've got our next guest on deck, and I mentioned that later on, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing is going to be here, and we're going to talk about that word, since Lou Gossett says he does not like the term African American. He likes Negro. I'm just wondering, all these labels, is this just, we sound like a confused people. Everybody else knows what they are except us. Toni Hickman, welcome to WL Radio.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I was so excited to come. I came an hour early, and I was told to come back.
Okay. Toni, tell us your story. Tell us, because I've been told you have an incredible story that people need to know. Because, you know, they say, if you've got really think you're having a bad day, listen to Toni's story.
Well, before all of this, I was signed to a major label that was under Universal Records. I'm a hip-hop singing artist, compared to like Missy Elliott or Lauryn Hill or something like that. But anyway, in 2004, I actually was about to do another deal and about to fly to Los Angeles, and I had my first brain aneurysm. It took me out of the game for a minute, and then I got back in and started performing, got all kinds of write-ups, you know, in magazines nationwide. And I finished my album and went to New Orleans to celebrate. And I thought I was having, like, I guess food poison because I ate some food and then I started getting sick. But I actually was having another brain aneurysm. And that brain aneurysm, the blood started leaking in my brain, so I completely passed out. And I woke up in Tulane Medical Center, and I had to wait for my mother actually to drive from Atlanta at the time to give them permission to operate on me. When she came there, they operated on me and told her that I would have a 50% chance of living or death. When I came to, I was paralyzed. I couldn't add 2 + 2. I couldn't spell. And I had pipes down my throat and up my nose, so I couldn't speak. And the doctor suggested to my mom that she put me in a nursing home because it wasn't likely that I was going to ever speak or walk again.
Well, hold that thought right there. And when you come back, I want you to tell us how old you were when you first had this aneurysm, and explain to the audience what that is. Wow. Okay. 800-450-7876, the number to call. Speak to motivational speaker Toni Hickman. That's what she's become. She started out as a hip-hop artist. I'm going to ask you, too, about the N-word if you use that. Anyway, we got traffic coming up for our folks in the DMV. We're taking calls next for Toni at 800-450-7876 right here on 1450. WOL, where information is power.
Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for waking up with us. Still to come, and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. But right now we're speaking with motivational speaker Toni Hickman. She didn't start out to be a motivational speaker. Toni was a hip-hop artist, and until she had a medical attack. Toni, what age were you when you first diagnosed with an aneurysm? And tell folks what that is.
Well, when it first started, I was actually 28 years old. And a brain aneurysm is when a vessel gets weak in your brain, like it creates a clot because it's weakened, so it's falling. And so when the blood is flowing, it kind of drops into that weakened part, and it develops this clot. And actually, people die from brain aneurysms because if it's clotted and your brain is not receiving the oxygen it needs, you can actually die. So, yeah.
Quincy Jones, didn't Quincy have one as well? Did you know? Right? I thought that Quincy Jones had one at one time.
I know he had a stroke. I can't really say if he had a brain aneurysm, but I know Sheryl Crow definitely had one. You know.
So you're like 28 years old, at the top of your game. Record companies are after you, and you get this medical report. What do you do?
Well, at that time, I was really unconscious of everything going on at first brain aneurysm. And so when I came home, I was frustrated because I couldn't do as much. I was on bed rest for a very long time. But I wasn't paralyzed, like nothing happened. And it wasn't until my second brain aneurysm when I was visiting New Orleans and the blood actually started leaking. And that's when you can have big issues. That's when most people actually leave out of here into the next realm, you know. And so, that situation happened, and I must confess, I really was depressed. I was angry, and my whole life was altered. So I had to really go through a process of learning to love myself for who I am and actually who I'm becoming. And it's a process. Everybody that ends up becoming paralyzed or having a really life-altering situation happens, they're going to go through that, you know.
Before you get to that, what causes a brain aneurysm?
You know, I asked the doctors the same thing because that was the one thing I wanted to avoid. And they couldn't tell me. They don't have the answer. They say, you know, it can come from a weak vessel, but they don't know what causes that vessel to become weak in your brain. They don't know.
So when you were diagnosed with this, did you go through why me situation?
What? Oh, my God. Yes, especially the second time because I'm in a wheelchair. Like, I had to get, you know, transported to the toilet and all of that. Yeah. I'm like, okay, both times I'm about to do my record deal. I'm about to do everything that can really benefit me and my family. Like, why is this happening? And I understand it now, you know. So
explain what you mean. You understand. Why is it happening? Why do you think you got the short straw twice?
Right, twice. Yeah. Well, basically, I had some things that I could have altered in my life. You know, I grew up in the streets. And I was a knucklehead. I had been on my own since I was 15 years old. And so it was street music that I was doing that actually ended up getting me signed to a major label. And the first time that I had my brain aneurysm, I had left that other label, but I was about to go and negotiate with a label under Interscope at that time. And they didn't have a great reputation. And so, you know, powers that be can always step in and make sure that, you know, you don't make the wrong choices. So that was that one. And then it was some things that I needed to adjust. I needed to learn and grow in my own life, you know, and that is what this situation did for me. It made me love myself for who I am because I was told not to put any chemicals in my hair. And before that, you know, I was wearing perms, weaves, all of that. But when they told me that I needed to stop doing that for at least 1 to 2 years, I researched why and I found out about all of these chemicals. So I ended up doing a book on it. But beyond that, I ended up learning how important it is to love myself for who I am with my limp, with my partial paralyzation, with all of that. Like, it's very important for me to for all of us to love ourselves as is. And that's how we truly grow. So,
well,
my situation really did something great for me. Go ahead.
Were you a religious person before, or are you a religious person now?
No, I was never religious. Spiritual is the word I would prefer to use. And, you know, religion or God, when I was in the hospital the second time, I got angry with God. And, you know, I was like, okay, if God is supposed to be this person that saves me from all of this tragedy, then why is this constantly happening to me? But I had some lessons that I had to learn, and all of that connected later on.
So you're in the hospital lying on your back, and you're asking God, why did this happen to me? Did you curse God?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, you know, I will tell you a short story. I was in the hospital and I'm crying. And so my nurse comes in and reminding you that I had just got a write-up in like one of the biggest magazines I could have been in as far as hip hop is concerned. And so I got to write up, and I'm just like, why now? You know, and I'm crying, you know, I can't walk, I'm in a wheelchair, and my smile is crooked to the side a little bit. And it was just like the nurse walked in and she's like, why are you crying? And I said, I'm mad. I said, why does this keep happening? You know, and she said, and I said, and I'm mad at God. And she said, well, while you're mad, this is what you need to question, why you had 2 brain aneurysms and a stroke and you're still alive. And, you know, when she said it, I was still in my pity party mode. So I was just like, whatever. But until this day, her words just really still stick with me because, you know, life has changed and I'm blessed to be here and grateful.
Well, I'm glad you're here to tell your story because, you know, people are going through stuff every day and listening to us on the radio and they probably think of their problems, what they have and the mountains that they have to climb on a daily basis. But you had some huge ones. Did you ever want to throw in the towel and just say, hey, I'm out of here?
Yep, I most certainly did. And I tell people that all the time. Like, people are going to go through that. There is no way your life gets completely altered and you're, like, happy with cookies and stuff like that. Like, it's a process that we have to go through. It's almost like losing someone close to you. You know, you mourn your loss, and that's something that happened with my situation. I mourned my loss, but then I grew.
All right, hold on a sec, because we've got to step aside. We've got some information we're going to pass on to our folks in the DMV. When we come back, 800-450-7876. Toni Hickman, a motivational speaker. Toni, when we come back, tell us what stopped you from throwing it all away and checking out. Take your calls next for Toni on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
1450 WOL, where information is power. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
Well, thank you for staying with us this morning. And as I mentioned, Dr. Welsing is up next. But right now we're speaking with motivational speaker Toni Hickman. She didn't start out to be a motivational speaker. Toni actually was going to be one of the big hip-hop stars. She was hit with an aneurysm and then another aneurysm, a stroke. Toni, before we left, I was asking you, you said you thought about, cashing it in and just, because I guess the struggle and the pain was too much. But what kept you from not doing that?
Well, my family was panicking because most of my family is from New Orleans. And so my family was in the hospital panicking about my life. And this is what I was told because I was unconscious. But my mother came in and she prayed, and she said the main thing that she prayed for is that I would come back with my sound mind, because if I came back with my sound mind, she knew that I would be all right, because I'm known to be stubborn. And so she was definitely one of the main reasons that I didn't cash out. But also I have a son, and the thought of leaving him was more painful than me taking the easy way out. And so I knew I would hurt him if I left. And that is like the number 1 and 2 reasons. Yeah.
Do you blame yourself? Do you blame the lifestyle? Because you said you were a rapper, a hip-hop, you were basically in the streets growing up. Do you blame your behavior for what happened to you?
Not all of it. No, not all of it. I think, we attract situations that end up changing our lives for the better and for the worse. So yeah, some of it is definitely my fault. As far as me not getting sleep, me remaining stressed out. I've always been a health nut. Like, I never had high blood pressure or anything, and I still don't. But, from time to time, I did have drinks, and, I would smoke from time to time. And so You know, I'm clean now, of course, but I had always been a health nut. So it was like, why me? Why is this happening to me? You know? But on the flip side, it was some things and some ways of life that I needed to change. And this forced it. It was like, okay, you know, I'm going to make it happen. If you don't want to change on your own, we're going to have to be put in a situation to make it happen. And that's what happens in life, period. We have all of these lessons that we need to learn from, but we keep saying, okay, well, you know, I'll just make that happen tomorrow. I won't do it today. And then something happens that makes us take that step because we're being hard-headed and not listening to spirit.
So when did you come to that conclusion? When did you get that point, though, that the Creator was trying to use you and push you in a different direction from what you wanted to go?
I can't really say. You know, everybody in the hospital will always tell me, you're here for a reason. Or whenever I go and speak and tell my story, like, people always say, you're here for a reason. You're here for a reason. So I guess hearing that constantly and actually knowing it when I looked at the odds of being alive in my current situation, I think that is what kind of started altering my vision of my life and what I should be doing with my life. And right now, I truly do live by spirit. Like, I'm very strict on my life and conservative on my life, but at the same time, I'm living my purpose, you know, so.
And what is that purpose? Because, you know, people go through the life, you know, and they get older and older, and they're still searching, truly trying to find out what's the reason I'm placed on this planet for? What is it the Creator wants me to do? A lot of people, you know, even they have that best-selling book, you know, Your Purpose in Life. They're trying to find out what they're here for. So when did you come to the conclusion that you're not here to be a big time, the next Missy Elliott, but you're here to be Toni Hickman, the motivational speaker?
And the amazing thing is I'm still an artist. Like, I just had a release party, and I am disabled, so I also speak for the disabled community. So even at my release party, I have started an organization that is Inspired and Able is the name of it. And so I had a girl that was shot. She's from Colombia, and she got shot as a teenager. And she's beautiful, but she always wanted to be a model. So we had a fashion show. We had an amazing speech. And so that was giving to the differently abled, because now I can relate to that side of life. You know, we deal with prejudices in all types of situations. We deal with it with race, and then we deal with it with people who think that they are better than other people because of their situations. Whether it may be financial status or, you know, physical abilities. It can be so many situations that we are judged on based on what people think. And so that was one of my outlets to express, you know, the differently abled. But my purpose is to give. It's always been to give of my talent, of my wisdom that I've gained through pain. That is what I'm here to give. And my talent has changed now.
You've been through a lot. What's been the reaction of the record community, the hip hop community, now seeing that what you've been through, you're way on the top and verge of a total breakout, and then you have these set of unfortunate incidents that sidelines you for a bit. Have they embraced your comeback, or are they still sort of, you know, watching to see, or do they pity you?
Yeah, I'm kind of stubborn, like I said earlier. So most won't pity me once they know me. Now, when people first meet me, they'll say, "Oh, what happened to you?" Or, because I do walk with a limp. And they'll say, "Oh, you know, what happened to you?" or whatever. But my personality is strong and I'm driven, and I don't believe that anything should ever stop you from accomplishing your goals and what's on your heart to accomplish. I have written a book. I've done a documentary. I've done events. I've done so many things after this happened because nothing is impossible in my mind. Just because it happens doesn't mean it's impossible.
So is this the takeaway from all of the struggles that you've been, that you can achieve anything?
Yes, most definitely. Nothing is impossible. I don't care what your situation is. You know, nothing is impossible. If you want it bad enough, you know, that's it.
And hopefully, you know, people who are listening, going to work right now and thinking about their problems, you know, I got to pay a phone bill, I got to pay a light bill, and thinking of, and hearing your story, that what you went through. It's an incredible story, folks. Her name is Toni Hickman. She's now a motivational speaker. She's got back into the recording business as well. Interesting story. And also, wow, it's a real rough one too for one person to go through, but she has managed to do it. And as I mentioned, she's a motivational speaker. So she's here to get you up and going. We'll come back. We'll speak to Toni some more. Take your calls at 800-450-7876. News and traffic next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Your voice can now be heard.
Y'all ready?
Yeah. With Carl Nelson weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us. And our guest, now turned rapper, hip-hopper, Toni Hickman. She's a motivational speaker. Toni, number to call, speak to Toni, 800-450-7876. Still to come, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. We're going to talk about why we seem so confused about what we call ourselves. Is it a distraction? Is it really all that important? The latest person to come out, a late celebrity, as you will say, Louis Gossett Jr. says he's not an African-American. He's a Negro. And, you know, before that, if you were listening earlier, Kyle Bowser, I guess, was talking about putting the N-word on trial. Having said that, Toni, when you were performing, did you use the N-word?
Yep, I did.
You did?
Sure did.
Still, and after what you've been through?
I don't now. No, I don't now.
So at what point did you change? Was it the illness that made this change, or would you think if you had not?
It was my perception. I think if something had to happen to me to change a whole lot of things. There's a lot of things that I learned, and I don't even think we have enough time on the radio to even go into that much. But, you know, just the respect of self, loving self. Like when you truly learn to love self, you look at all the ailments that we have as a people. And that was one of the lessons that I definitely learned. You know, and I wasn't like a hip hop artist that was just, I guess truly 100% ignorant. I still had a message in my music, sort of like how Tupac was, but at the same time, I did have ignorance, and I needed balance.
So when you say you still had ignorance, you mean you did not really know about the N-word and its usage and its heritage, if I can say that word? Oh,
no, I knew about it. It's sort of like when, you know, women perm their hair. When we perm our hair and then when it burns, we just think, okay, it's time to wash it out because it burns. We don't think about why it burns or the process of how it can contribute to disease in our body or how it is harming us and keeping us disconnected from our culture. We don't think about all of that. All we think about is this time to rinse it out. And so that was kind of like the mentality I had with that word. I never gave it further thought. I knew it wasn't 100% accurate, but I just used it, you know.
This, because I'm hearing now, as a person who went through a transformation, I'm just wondering how much of the illness had to do with that. Because now you understand about doing your hair, perming your hair. Do you still do that? Put those chemicals in your hair?
Not at all. I have long locks that's like halfway down my back. So yeah, no.
But do you think putting those chemicals in your hair had anything to do with your illness?
Well, the doctors told me to stop putting chemicals in my hair. So I listened. And when I wrote my book is called Chemical Suicide. But when I wrote my book, what I did find out is that, you know, what we put on our skin, we absorb 60% of everything that we put on our skin. So if I'm absorbing something that is put on rats and they can actually die or have tumors from it, then, of course, it is definitely not contributing to my health. So,
folks, you just joined us. I guess it's Toni Hickman. Toni started off as a hip hop artist, was on the verge of a major breakthrough. And then she was hit with not one, but 2 brain aneurysms and also a stroke. And Toni, Ted sent us a tweet. He said, "Did your friends stand by you during the ordeal, or did you find out who your real friends are because of that?"
most definitely, I found out who my real friends were. And, I was dealing with big people in the music industry because I was already known. I had been featured on gold and platinum albums, so I was dealing with a lot of people. But when I got sick, those people I couldn't even contact. They were not there. But I did find out. I have a best friend that is my best friend for life, and he was there for me, and a couple of other people were there, but it was few and far in between.
And those are the people you're talking about in the record industry. Those are the ones who deserted you?
Yeah.
Were you surprised?
I was hurt, not surprised, because I'm already going through my pain of dealing with my identity, and then I'm going through, I've never seen somebody publicly be disabled in the music industry. So, I'm no longer going to be accepted. I can't put perms in my hair, so I'm no longer going to be accepted. I had all of these negative thoughts that were breaking me down on top of the idea that the people that were in the industry that were a part of helping me grow in that part of the industry were not there anymore for me.
So did you have to seek counseling? Because it seems like, wow, you went through a lot. I mean, you're at the top of your game. Just a major breakout is probably an album away or a CD away or record away, whatever it is that's used these days. And then these unfortunate things happen to you, not just once, but twice, and then a stroke on top of it. You were about to, you got your fingers on the grass ring, and then somebody snatches it from you. So I'm just wondering, did you have to go through counseling to come to terms with all of that?
Counselors are very hard to find the right one. And so I did see one when I was in Louisiana for rehabilitation. And then I had my social worker in when they transferred me to Atlanta. But the first one, they just wanted to give me medicine. And like I said, I'm a health nut. I don't believe in taking a whole bunch of medicine to cure thoughts. So, but my social worker in Atlanta helped me more. But it was just something that I had to kind of come to grips with. My mother was there for me, and, my son, and the love was there. And that is what I think helped me through. But, yeah, I had to go through a lot of thought-changing processes, I was scared to get out the car. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a model type. I stayed in heels. Now I didn't want to get out the car because I was embarrassed and all sorts of things. And so I had to come to grips with a lot of things.
So how did you work through all that? And when, how did you come to terms with what your situation is now and what it was before?
Well, when I got out of the hospital, I couldn't get perms. I keep coming back to that because that is a really big thing in my life that I see.
It's not just your life. It seems like for sisters, period. It's, and we had this discussion before on the radio about hair, and the guy says, why the sisters don't go to the gym and why they don't like to exercise. They don't go
They don't want to ruin their hair. Yeah.
Exactly. And maybe another question for Dr. Welsing, but is this some sort of self-hate with the hair thing with sisters? Because you said that's your biggest concern.
Yeah, and like I said, it's something that we don't really think about. So if you tell somebody, okay, you don't like yourself because you perm your hair, and they'll just say, I just don't
hold that
like
thought, Toni, because we'll get into that because we got to step aside. We've got some announcements for our folks in the DMV.
Okay.
We get into the hair business, because it seems like you went through 2 aneurysms, a stroke, and you're concerned about your hair. 800-450-7876. And speak to Toni Hickman next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Information is power.
This show has been previously recorded. No phone calls, please.
Real Talk Radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Toni Hickman. She started out as a hip-hop artist. Now she's still a hip-hop artist, but she's also a motivational speaker. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to be joined by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. And this confusion, this seems, it appears to be confusion. Hopefully she'll clear it up for us about what we call ourselves. Is it a distraction? Is it really all that important? As I mentioned, Lou Gossett Jr. now says he's not an African American. He doesn't like the term. He says he wants to be called an American Negro. I want to find out if it's a generational thing or just people just don't want anything to do with Africa. But now we're speaking with Toni Hickman. Toni started off as a hip hop artist in the likes of Missy Elliott. And then unfortunate incidences, she had a brain aneurysm, not once, but twice, and also a stroke. And we've got to find out what kept her going. And we talked about the hair. And she says, because the doctor told her she couldn't put any chemicals in her hair anymore. And it seems like this is an issue with a lot of black women. And Toni, I got to ask you, is it part, do you think now, looking back, because you've had a lot of time to think about these things, about the illnesses and the doctors telling you not to put the chemicals in your hair, is it part of that self-hate that some black women go through?
Yeah, definitely. It is. And I mean, it's understandable. And that's something that I also talk about in my book, because we went through being compared to Caucasians for the longest. So we're looking at magazines and they have these white women on there that are super skinny and they have this long, straight flowing hair. And we've always been put less than them in America. And so, of course, we wanted to fix that. And then we took it on our own twist and we did stacks and we did all of these fly hairstyles with the perms. So we have always set the style for our hair. We've always set it, but at the same time, the perm has been invented just to straighten our kinks and not accept our natural state. And that's where, in my opinion, that's where we bloom, because that's when we have truly learned to love self as is.
Now, do you? I know you go around the country and you give speeches to the young people. When you tell your story to them, what's the reaction? Especially when you talk about the hair and the chemicals, are they feeling it, or are they just it's not going to happen?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. They take the information and lots of them. I've even had one young lady just start crying when I was telling my story, because her mother didn't want her to go natural. Her mother was just like, you're not going to be able to get a job. You're not going to be able to do all of this if you wear your hair nappy. You need to keep getting perm. And she was just so frustrated, because in her spirit, she knew that she wanted to be a natural, but it just wasn't allowed from her family. So we have so many issues like that in the black community, and it's something that we definitely have to deal with. And it's slowly coming around, but it's still there.
So how old were you when you first got your first perm? When you were, because what that does, it tells you that the hair that God gave you is not good enough. So
yeah.
Subliminally, that's what that's telling you. So what age were you when, and I guess it had to be your parents who did it, or relatives who did that, put those chemicals in your hair?
I was 12 years old, and the first time it happened, well, my aunt was going to take me to the beauty shop, and I told my older aunt that I was about to go to the beauty shop. So she hurried up and washed my hair, and I didn't know why she was doing it, but then I found out she was washing my hair, so I couldn't get a perm. And so I had to get it pressed. But then my other aunt brought me back 2 weeks later to get a perm, and that's when it happened. Yeah.
So now, all you've been through, and that was the major thing that you were thinking about your hair. That's just
well,
amazing.
And we was comparing it to the upliftment of my thoughts. and when I came to the acceptance of loving self, because I didn't want to be seen with my natural hair. It was cut off. It was short. So I had gotten braids just to like make me look like I still had long hair and all of this stuff. But then one day I was in the mirror and I would be shamed to walk with my limp. And at that time I was even on a cane. And so I was just really ashamed. And therefore, you know, my confidence level was just underneath my shoe. Like, it was just horrible. And I got in the mirror one day and I was taking out my braids and I'm looking at myself and, you know, I had to talk to myself like, I love you. You are beautiful just the way you are. And it came with my hair. Like, your hair is beautiful. Your limp is beautiful and you are beautiful. And I just told myself that. I cried in the mirror and I was just like, you know what? This is it. And I came out of the braids. I came out of everything. And I went to a Hawks game the next day. And that was the beginning of me just saying, hey, this is me. I love myself.
Wow, what a story. And you put that in a book. What's the title of that book?
My book is titled Chemical Suicide, Death by Association. And it doesn't just talk about perms. It talks about lotions, deodorant, toothpaste, whole bunch of stuff that we use and we think is contributing, and it's really contributing to death.
So when did you come to the conclusion? We talked about the hair, but the other aspects that you mentioned, when did you come to the conclusion that all that other stuff that you've got chronicled in your book is not really good for us?
Research. I was so shocked that I couldn't use a perm. And so in the process of researching about the perms, I ended up finding out about everything else. And so that was like a bonus. And then the title just came to me, Chemical Suicide, Death by Association, because it's not the product itself. It's actually the preservatives that are giving it shelf life that are contributing to the diseases and everything. Like, they've discovered now that, you know, perms contributed to fibroid tumors and you know, certain lotions go into our bloodstream and they contribute to cancers, and deodorants and all of this stuff. This is stuff that if we went and took the natural route, like, we wouldn't have that problem. And I still use some stuff, but I use it every now and then. I don't use it every day. I'm very mindful of what I put on my body, because my body is absorbing 60% of everything we put on it. So that's just something to think about.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the hair thing with the sisters. Did any of them come to you and ask you, is there a way to get their hair straight without chemicals?
Yeah, and it is. We all know that method, the hot comb. So.
Wow, it's just, you know, as men, we don't, you know, I know back then they used to do their hair back in the day, but for modern day African men, we don't go through these changes about trying to have long, wavy, straight hair. At least most of us don't. Let me say that, because I know there are probably some brothers out there who are still jerry curled down and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, it seems like it's an internal struggle in the minds of women, and you had this struggle about your hair, and yet still you had all these medical issues that you had to deal with.
Yeah, but
so which was more important? I guess my question is, was it the medical issues? Was it the what we see? You know, the hair, or was it the internal medical issues? Which do you think was most important? And I'll tell you what, I'll let you answer that question on the other side, because we've got a traffic report coming up for our friends in the DMV. When we come back, also tell us how we can get your book and also the latest CD that you're working on. 800-450-7876. Toni Hickman is our guest, and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing is on deck as well. Calls next.
WOL Washington, WPRS HD2 Waldorf, WKYS HD2 Washington, WMNJ HD2 Bethesda, a Radio 1 station, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show
on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
Thank you for waking up with us and rolling with us this morning. Our guest is Toni Hickman. She's now a motivational speaker. Started as a hip-hop artist, and you heard with her story, incredible story. Dr. Welsing's on deck next, and we probably need Dr. Welsing to help us out with all of this. But Sarita's calling us from California. Sarita, your thoughts about, I know you want to talk about the hair because Toni says she does not perm her hair anymore.
Yes, that is exactly what I want to talk about. First of all, Toni, I want to offer my prayers and blessings to you, sister, for coming back so strong and believing that you could, and it's just motivational. I've been there and done that, so I absolutely commend you. However, I wanted to speak about the hair because, Carl, more sisters are embracing the natural look more and more. It's not as bad as the media and others will paint it. We're embracing our natural hair. And a lot of times, too, Carl, when sisters are dealing and to your guests, when we're dealing with our hair is so high maintenance. And it takes a lot. Like a lot of other races come up to us and ask us, how do you get your hair like that? And why do you this? Why you don't want to go in the pool and this, that, and the other? And when we tell them we have high maintenance hair, we have different things we have to go through. But I will say this, and I know, and this is what I teach my daughters, and that is we cannot blame the generation before us. However, Carl, you mentioned that in your generation or the generation before you, like James Brown and stuff like that, they were perming and things like that. And so our mindset was based on, I haven't permed since 1993, so I don't do that. However, I do coloring because I'm in my 40s, early 40s, and I'm graying in the front for some reason. But the thing is, we are embracing our hair more and more, Carl. We are wearing the locks. We are wearing the naturals, actually. We are wearing the non-synthetic braiding. But a lot of times too, I want the sister to speak on too, is when we wear our weaves and our braids, we're not looking for, most of us, let me just say most of us, we are not looking to look like white women. That's not it. It's that our hair is so high maintenance, it's easy to be able to wrap it up, come out of it and go to work. It's a little easier for us. But it's not about us wanting to be white women, look like white. Maybe back in the day when we hadn't grasped that conscious thought. But now so many of us recognize that we are beautiful. Our hair is beautiful. I had some chick tell me, from a different race, yeah, she saw a mixed child. She was mixed with Mexican and black. Yeah, her hair right there, that is the good hair. I said, well, what's good hair, honey? I said, because her texture, you can't do anything with. I said, with our texture, with my texture, the kinky texture, I can wear the fro, I can straighten it, I can braid it, I can do whatever with it. So what do you mean? Because good hair does not exist. And of course, not only do other races have that mindset, but some of our people, and I have to tell them, I don't use that term in my household, and I grew up not having that in my household that I grew up with my mom. There is no good hair. There is no good hair. Yet others are saying, I wish I had hair like you. I know you do. So I would like to take my comments off the air. Thank you so much for taking my call, Carl, and to the sister, God bless you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarita. And Toni, before we let you go, how can folks get your book and your CD?
You can go to my website. It's ToniHickman.com. So that's ToniHickman.com, and go to Alika store, and you can get the book and the CD. So. And I would just like to comment on what the sister just came on. She's absolutely right. We are embracing our hair. I do think that, deep down in our spirit, if we don't think about it, we still have some issues with comparing ourselves to what Caucasians do. Not all of us. Many of us are embracing it, but there are also many of us who don't want to deal with our hair because of what it is, we will say it's because it's too nappy or it doesn't look good on us, but that's the hair that we were born with, so it always looks good with us. But there are people that have, the disease that balds you, and yes, they need weaves, they need braids and everything else to cover that. So we have many reasons and many issues as black women, all to look good for our black men. So.
All right. Thanks, Toni. Thank you for joining us, and good luck.
And thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All righty. 800-450-7876, and that's the number you need to call because Dr. Welsing is joining us now. Dr. Welsing.
Yes, good morning, Carl. How are you?
We're doing good. I know you heard the conversation about the hair. Got to ask you, as a psychiatrist, is it self-hate?
Well, let me just say the interview you just did with Ms. Hickman was a wonderful interview. If that could be made into a CD in some way, and then everybody get that for a Christmas present or a birthday present. Just a wonderful interview. So much self-examination and truth and self-respect and self-love. I thought it was just a magnificent interview. Glad I heard it.
And back to the hair, because, we talked, because that's what we ended up talking about. What she went through, but all she went through, what she was concerned about, it was her hair, that, she could no longer have straighten her hair. She went the locks route. And now she appreciates it. So so when we see sisters, especially now, we see a lot of them with the blonde hair and all that. Is that self-hate manifesting in itself, or
well,
is it just style?
I just say it's the evidence of living in a system of racism, white supremacy for 500 plus years. Do you see? I mean, a system of racism, white supremacy teaches that white is beautiful and black is ugly, and everything about black is ugly. And I'm starting a movement, most black, most beautiful. All the colors are fine, but when black people are able to really feel in their spirit, in their soul, most black, and I mean most black, most beautiful, we are going to be liberated. All the colors are fine, but see, most black is the parent color. And I say that, black people say, well, they're religious or spiritual, yet we were, by the creative force in the universe, black people were made black, not mixed, most black. That's the parent color through which all other colors are possible. And so, under the system of racism, white supremacy, and white supremacy think, most black is hated. And yet then black people will try to pray. Pray to the creator that made most black and ask for something, but we hate what the creative force made. So it's like spitting in the eye of God. That's the way I phrase it.
All right, hold that thought right there. We got a traffic update for our folks in the DMV. When we come back, we talk about the N-word, whether it's why we seem to be confused about who we are and what we are. Your thoughts next. 800-450-7876. Speak to Dr. Welsing right here.